my name is Amanda Thibedeau. I currently work at an airport as an airport crash rescue firefighter at Bradley International Airport. I'm a firefighter EMT there. I also work part-time as a deputy fire marshal, deputy emergency management director for the town of East Granby, and do fire marshal work there predominantly. And yeah, keeps me busy.
That's great. So maybe if you can take me back a little bit to if you can recall a little bit about why you joined the program and perhaps as well, what were your expectations when you came in?
When my former job had an incredible opportunity that would afford us the chance to continue education, collect education. And I always promised my parents, believe it or not, that if I ever found a place that would, financially support, continuing education, I would get my master's degree.
Mhm.
And ironically, I landed, like I said, my former job, the opportunity came up. So I wanted to take advantage of it while I was there.
Mhm.
And I wanted to look into a program that was more specific and tailored to what I wanted to do for myself. You figure when you're doing your undergrad work, it's very structured, it's all your prerequisites and stuff. I wanted to do something for me. And I ended up just kind of going back to my alma mater and I looked up the leadership negotiation program. I at the time, I really appreciated what I couldn't remember exactly what the description was, but I know it captivated me enough to want to, give it a shot. And it really sounded like it really challenged you as a person, and full time with different focuses on perspective and such. And I was at a point in my life where I really could, have taken advantage of that. So that's really what drew me in.
Great.
As far as the other part of your question was, if
Ex-
sorry, what was that?
Expectation. Expectation.
Expectations. Expectations. I just was really hoping to really grow from it. I know one of the entry, if I remember correctly, on the entry application, it was what our definition of leadership was, and I remember it being pretty vague. When you stop and you really think about what you perceive as leadership, it's very. I think everybody must have had the same description, in their applications, and by the end of it, your mind is completely blown because you're taken in so many different directions in a good
Hmm.
way.
Great. So tell me a little bit about, at the end of the program, sort of match those expectations to where you ended up getting, and then I guess the second part would really be sort of what were your biggest takeaways?
So I remember a lot of the lessons that you had. It was really fascinating. I was thinking about it the other day, and you're given the keys, right, to all this new knowledge. And I really felt like the years that followed, when you were able to unlock a lot of those lessons in your own life and your own experiences, was when things really started to kind of melt together for me.
Hmm.
One of the biggest ones was when we talked about your view from the balcony, and you're able to, you maybe don't necessarily agree with perspective, but you're able to kind of look at an overall general picture and understand where other folks are coming from, taking a step back and respecting that, but in the same term kind of like entering into that conversation in a less abrasive manner. That was probably one of the biggest ones for me, because I had, from time to time, folks tell me that I was very much black and white, and I saw what I saw, and if I didn't quite agree with it, you almost shut down. As your human psyche, you shut down and you kind of block it out. And really, the lessons that we learned over those couple years was really to allow yourself to absorb what they're coming from, as far as where their thought processes are, and you may or may not agree with it, but it's how do you tactfully kind of enter into that discussion mode without creating that kind of conflicting environment.
Hmm.
So that to me was pretty much the biggest eye opener.
Okay. And so what do you feel like, when you look at your work as an EMT and working with the fire department and things along those lines? You mentioned going to the balcony. Are there other sort of knowledge and skills you feel like you fall back on pretty regularly, that you can maybe share?
Um, I really find I've had some moments even in past experiences where you're up against kind of a wall. You're presented with an opportunity to really be able to voice and maybe exercise your ability to try to talk to people at their level. Try to, not necessarily reason with people at their level, but understand that sometimes where they're coming from is not always a good place. They might bring stuff in from the outside. They've got things going on at home. They've got some maybe potential past traumas, and it's just they're reactive in that kind of a sense when it comes to interacting in different levels, in either emergencies or just back, in kind of a closed environment.
Mhm.
And I really, it took me by surprise a little bit. You still have that kind of initial reaction to those kinds of, conversations, and sometimes they become elevated. Sometimes it's totally it's out of your control. You can't always reason with people, and been given those keys to try to talk to folks in different maybe mindsets, different, with different backgrounds or different cultures. There's some cultures, and I've experienced it firsthand that they prefer not to talk to women. And, a lot of my coworkers have noticed that, and they say, they try to explain, hey, listen, this is what's going on. And you totally understand and you respect it, because that's just the cards that you've been handed, and you try to work with it the best you can. Fortunately, where I'm at currently, everybody works together. Everybody, you're kind of folded into those kinds of, like I said, calls or conversations, and people just kind of like step in to assist, if that's the case.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So this might be the hardest question for you. If you could think of one word that sort of describes the program, what would you say? And maybe a little bit about why that word.
I would describe it as awakening. And the reason why I use that one is because, like I said, I actually just found my paper that I had submitted on my initial application on what I thought leadership was. And it was kind of the typical, okay, somebody stepping, above and beyond. And I can't quite remember exactly what I had written, but I remember reading that. And then at the end of the 2 years, you're kind of you sit back and you're like, wow, okay. And like I was saying to you before, you're handed the keys and all these lessons, but until you actually unlock it firsthand in your own experiences, that really kind of embraces what you've learned and what you've gone over. So for me, awakening would definitely be the word to use, because I learned a tremendous amount about myself. And if anything, I left the program knowing I had a lot of work yet to do, with myself and where I'm coming from and where I want to go. And, but I definitely succeeded in putting myself kind of on the spot and being able to delve a little bit more into my perspectives. And I knew exactly where it was that I really needed to work a little bit more on, but I appreciated that much more. Being able to really take that step back was really the biggest takeaway from me, and just dealing and talking with people. And some things you can win, some things you're going to lose, and it's just how do you professionally and just tactfully kind of take that as another one of those lessons learned, and you just move forward with that at that point.
That's great. Well, I'm really glad that the program, met your expectations, et cetera, and that that you're pursuing your dreams here, which is always what we're aiming for as people do this. So thanks so much, and it's great to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you. Likewise. Take care.